Okay. Okay, my apologies, guys. Can I just say you'll hear a bit of coughing and spluttering behind me. My 18-year-old has really bad flu, so apologies for every now and then a little bit of extra noise. Yeah, he's not feeling well whatsoever. I've now told him to be less noisy, and I think he's got upset at me, so he might have gone to his room to sit on his laptop and work there. Right. So let's do this, guys. So this is the next main hurdle. And for me, essentially the first main hurdle. The rest were all building towards this. I think this is that significant moment. Now, the one thing we try and do at Varsity College is to avoid what often happens in public universities where you often can get turned down at the ethical clearance meeting because of a variety of reasons. I think we've been very cautious right from the start in terms of titles, in terms of topics. I am a little bit concerned that people have moved away from those original titles, but I will speak to those individuals specifically. Yeah, I mean, we'd agreed the titles, and if you've got a title in your concept document and it was agreed with your supervisor, please don't start changing titles now. You might want to make it more impactful. Be careful of those titles. Right, so let's look at the rubric in relation to the next stage. I'm not going to go through all of that again, guys. You would have seen that already. So the title, the one thing that I want us to do now is to see our titles to start popping. Guys, please do me a favor, Georgia Jade. Please just type your title in the message box for me. My apologies, guys. Right, we just wait for Georgia Jade to do that. Anyone else who has an impactful title? So it's more than just the exploring bit where there is a powerful bit at the beginning. Remember that the rubric gives you extra marks if you get to that poppable type thing that's really, really stands out. Anyone else want to share their title so that we can have a sense of what makes a good title? And you would have received feedback on your title already. Okay, Georgia's typing there. Right, so in terms of the title, there are a couple of criteria that we need to adhere to. I think, no, let's wait for the rubric title. I think for me, this is that thing that, from a first impressions perspective, has to be perfect. It has to be impactful. It has to indicate your actual topic in obviously in very brief form. And it also has to just contextualize it in terms of a province, in terms of a city, or in terms of a generation, for example, Gen X's or Gen Z's. So please remember that is important in terms of this. There is Georgia Jades. Okay, so it is the next, I suppose, generation that will come into the workplace. But if you see there, the initial impactful bit, right? And then exploring how we would integrate the next generation, so-called Generation Alpha, into our workforce. And there's a lot of thinking behind the research, and it really is a really impressive piece of research as well. Has everyone done that in terms of their titles at this stage? Most people would have started with just that component, explaining, exploring, or describing. At this stage, that is where we're at. Can I just see everyone at least getting close to that? Okay. So hopefully we're there. if we then move on, there is a nice one, Akil. Thank you so much. Okay, AI and Akil. Akil, who is your supervisor? And are you doing that quantitatively or qualitatively, boy?
Hi
Hi,
Doc, I'm
everyone
doing it
who's joining
quantitative.
us. You're doing it qualitatively. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you for that. Right. So the introduction, and again, we need to start getting closer to what we consider the perfection. And I know I keep saying this, and it is a little bit of a, I suppose there's a bit of arrogance in the statement, but because we are the largest group of students in terms of Varsity College, I want to make sure that we have a significant number of students who present at the e-symposium. Can I just say, getting your title right is an essential component of presenting at the e-symposium. Obviously, some of you wouldn't want to present, and that's absolutely fine. We're not going to bully people. But remember, it is your first chance to have some of your work published, and that's part of presenting at the e-symposium. So, in terms of the proposal, and I'm going to sound like a broken record now, but broken records sometimes resonate, yeah, at a very late stage. I think the key thing at the next stage, guys, is our introduction. So, when we talk about the title as that kind of first impressions thing, your introduction has to also be impactful. It also has to create a real powerful impression, again aligned with that first impressions type notion. So I know that I default to this, and I apologize for doing that, but our thinking is this kind of thing, and you've got this, you've seen it, and I default to it because it is just so incredibly good. But it's this introduction here, that kind of stand out bit in the middle that essentially attracts attention. And then key in terms of that, don't let that hang loose and separate from the actual paragraph. It is the transition sentence into your specific report. Please get that right. I've seen a couple where people have put it in the document itself. It doesn't work there. I want to see it at the top, and I want to see the transition sentence. So there is this attract attention, and this is why it's important that we've included that piece of typing. So please remember that opening bit for me. In terms of the introduction, it has to catch the reader's interest. And it really starts giving us a bit of a background. It gives us the kind of background that has led to this problem. And it starts to give us an idea of what is happening in terms of this research from a context perspective. Please remember, you're writing for a specific audience, so your tone, your approach, everything is geared towards a specific audience. And if your specific audience has certain terminologies that are a natural part of it, we need to make sure that we use those terminologies as well. So that to me is a heck of an important part. The idea of grabbing attention, transitioning in, giving us some sort of context and background and numbers and stats and facts are important there. And then taking us to the rest of the program. Please also, and I've had to tell a couple of people this, please also include a roadmap here. A roadmap is in this document, I will, in this research proposal, I will be attending to the following elements and take us through those elements. That roadmap is absolutely important in terms of just making sure that people can see what to expect going forward in this document. Any questions at this stage? And I feel like I've said this a number of times, and at some point I need to stop saying it and start focusing on other issues. So in terms of your rationale there, we talk about the significance of the study. Just remember, your rationale is essentially the reason why we're doing this particular study. The best way to arrive at your rationale, and I apologize for sounding like a broken record, is to ask the question, what would happen if I left this problem alone? If you can understand, and I'm just going to default to Georgia Jade's generation gloss, if we leave this problem alone, we'll end up in the same situation that we've encountered with Gen Z, who had essentially graduated and were ready for the world of work, and no organization from a systems, policy, procedure, culture perspective had prepared for them. And we've seen higher levels of turnover, and it's essentially to prevent the same mistake happening in terms of Gen Gloss. Georgia Jade, is that about your view on that as well? In
Yes,
terms of
it's
the rationale?
exactly it.
Okay, wonderful. And remember, you can give us specific details here, guys. Tell us about the significance. And then also tell different groups, what it means to business owners, to managers, even if parents want to read it in terms of preparing people for the future. And then also talk to the audiences. And remember, it is this. You have to highlight the importance of the study. It has to be significant. Please don't exaggerate. Okay, don't say that a black hole is going to open up and the Earth will be swallowed if it doesn't happen. That only applies to when Tashila doesn't talk too much. Okay, it doesn't apply anywhere else. And then just have a look at that. Look at what's existing out there, and also please just make sure that you want to focus on those elements there. Okay, what is it going to do in terms of practice, policy, decision making? We will, and in a very small way, be adding to existing scholarship. So the rationale is we are attending to these problems in order to assist in creating practice, policy, and advanced decision making in this particular area. And you can default to those three. Okay, this is important because we will add a bit to existing research. And remember, guys, the intention is for us to publish these bits of research. So we are going to do 8 interviews in terms of qualitative research. 8 interviews. If you've got resource rich and people who are experts in the field, who have lived this particular set of circumstances, the simple truth is you will have resource rich candidates and participants who will make a real difference in your discussion. And that's why we are hoping to get about 50 questionnaires answered. And again, if we don't get to 50, your minimum is 25. But if we want to publish in recognized journals, get it up to 50. Okay. So the rationale is that we are trying to make a significant contribution to those elements there in terms of our particular bit of study. Any questions on that, guys? So what would happen if we left this problem alone? How can we, in terms of our research, make a difference in terms of those 3 areas? Practice, policy, and facilitating decision making. Any questions on that at this stage? And then you would have seen this one before. Again, you'll see in there, it'll be contributing to theory, policy, practice, decision making. At this stage, I cannot believe that our problem statements aren't near perfect. Is that a fair comment? I've had a look at some, yeah, not from my group here, but from another group, where people still, in their minds, have not got it clear what their problem is that they're trying to resolve. Please remember, this here is the deficiency. It is the gap. It is the reason that we have the headache. There are some gaps in terms of what people are doing, what people are planning, what people essentially need to fix through policy. Please don't write this as a problem solved. Please write it as the deficiency. And remember, supported by academic references. Those academic references are essential. If we're going to do it properly, and you can start with this, guys, ideally, then describe what the situation would be like in terms of Georgia Jades, but ideally, organizations would have the appropriate policy, practice, and decision-making facilities available to effectively accommodate Generation A scholars and students when they join the world of work. Now, I'm pretty sure that the English is going to be better on Georgia's side. Reality, based on what's happened to Gen X, based on what we realize how different this generation is, this is going to have to be considered a real problem and a challenge at this stage. And then part C, in this research, I intend to adopt a qualitative approach, engaging with key experts within education too. And you can take it from there. Just hold on a second, please, guys. Okay, so, and then obviously there. Can I just see people who has got this clear in their head, who knows exactly what their research is about, who knows exactly what problem they're trying to address? Please, one of the mistakes that we've picked up over time is that people will often give the solutions here. If you have the solutions, why do the research? Please be extra careful with that. You have to describe that part B as a deficiency. Part C is simply telling us what we plan to do as part of this research. Okay? Approach, who we're going to engage with, etc. As you're very quiet tonight, are you bored of my saying the same thing over and over? I think we're at that point now, and I'm so sorry. Any questions at this stage? Any comments? Any concerns? Okay, just listening. Thanks. I know that's difficult to Sheila. 8, Kesh. 8. Okay, so truthfully, we've given 8, and if you've got 8 resource-rich participants, you might actually get to, it's called saturation. You might get to saturation in terms of your data. So it's called data saturation, where if you had to interview 9, 10, and 11, you would learn nothing new. So the kind of titles we have here, I think we'll be getting close to data saturation around 8 people. So please be very careful not to mention the small sample as a deficiency or a limitation in your research, because 8 is significant. For my PhD, I reached data saturation at number 14. And in fact, the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th person didn't tell me anything I didn't know. And that was for my PhD. Okay. So 8 is more than sufficient. And if you get data saturation where 4, 5, and 6, then, maybe stop at 6, but the ideal is 8. Okay, so the standard is 8. The standard for quantitative research, I'm going to say the minimum, and it is the minimum in terms of the sort of guidelines, is 25. Guys, please get to 50. Please get to 50. Okay. Yeah. Georgia Jade, I don't know if it's my PhD. Yeah, but remember, each of my interviews for my PhD, in terms of those people I had spoken to, took 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So these were very, very significant interviews, and I gleaned so much information from the first couple of people. And remember, when we and it's going to make more sense when you start doing your interviews. But when you use purposive sampling, where you identify a particular person and you ask that person, can you think of someone else who can contribute? It is astonishing, through that snowball sampling process, the kinds of individuals you encounter, because they often know other people with a lot of thoughts and ideas on this. So you'll see that your interviews will be significant, guys. Okay. To also just say, I mean, I adopted a very specific approach. I used grounded theory, and don't worry about grounded theory. It's unlikely that you'll see grounded theory before your PhD. Okay, so problem statement, guys, I've given more and more information, but I think it really is just, what is the deficiency? What is the headache? What is the concern that we're trying to address? Yeah, purpose statement. There are a couple of things that we have when we look at our purpose statement. I tend to default to that one. You should, truthfully, end up in the right place if you use that as your first few words. The purpose of this paper is to. There are other options available, and this is where, again, we would like to, and remember to look at terms like explore, etc. But the purpose of this is to determine, is to recommend, is to suggest, and arrive at. Maybe be careful of explore, but I think it is written in a positive way. We intend to provide a set of policy practices and decision-making guidelines to effectively accommodate Gen Alpha people into an organization in the future. Okay, so yeah. And then our research questions. Please get this right. Golden thread, golden thread, golden thread. I don't know how many times to repeat this. And at this stage, if you don't know this, you've not watched the recordings, and I can promise you this is going to still be a mess for us by the time we get to the final documents. It for me is very simple. Just remember, if we're doing quantitative and qualitative, quantitative research, qualitative research, you will have your main question, and you would have your clarifying questions, at least 3. Please don't get away with more 4 and 5 and 6 like that. Those there, so these are your questions. Those there, the sub-questions, will become your objectives. And remember, if you are doing qualitative research, most of you are doing exploratory research, so you will write it as to explore, where you take those sub-questions and you turn them into objectives. Okay. Quantitative research, a single question. Easiest way to ask it, what is the relationship between this and that? And then your hypotheses. So your hypotheses, your null as well as your alternate hypothesis. So no dramas with that, but I can promise you this will still be a headache going forward. Just to say, guys, I have spoken to the supervisors about our approach. I'm hoping that this has now resonated with them. I know that some people had a slight headache or two with that. So your research questions, Yeah, in terms of qualitative, your central question, and you can see a single central question, and call it, if you want, guys, central question and sub questions. Please, this is for much higher levels of research. You don't need more than three. I would, yeah, essentially, and I've said this a bazillion times, what is the single broadest question you can ask about this particular study? You clarify that broad question there. In terms of quantitative research questions, it is a relationship question. Just keep it simple. What is the relationship between? That's all you need to do, guys. We need to, where we can keep it simple, where we don't have to try and impress, is here. What is the relationship between this and whatever else? Okay. In terms of our research objectives, remember, qualitative will have objectives, the way I've depicted it there, and then quantitative will have hypotheses, null and alternate. Just say, guys, there is a relationship, there is no relationship between. It really is about keeping it simple. And again, guys, please remember, I am not your primary relationship in this study. Your primary relationship is with your supervisor. Yeah, I'm a secondary person in this process, except for the people that I supervise. Yeah, literature review. And remember the layout. I'll provide a layout. I need to go find one and I'll share it with you guys. Let me just see if I have got a layout. My apologies. I'll do this now. Mm. Okay. I need to also, guys, please remind me, that should come from the PGAL, but the moment I have it, I'll share it with you guys. There are certain annexures that have to be included. Please remember that. Shit. Yeah, this is not good. Okay, guys, do you want me to put a performer a template together for you for this? Yeah, let me just see what I've got here. Hold on. Nah. Okay, I'll put one together. I'll put one together, guys. Okay. The content page you need to generate electronically, boy. I can't do the content page for you. Yeah, I'm irritated with self because I can't find where the bloody performer is. I will find it. Okay, I will find it. Let me just try one more time. Okay. Yeah, I'll put something together, guys, and I'll let you have it. Okay, I'll do that. Right. Theoretical foundation. At this stage, you should have your theory or your theories sorted. Ideally, two theories, non-negotiable two theories if you are doing quantitative research. If you have a really good theory, one theory, but it has to be a very powerful theory. One theory will be fine for qualitative research, but I think a lot of people have defaulted to two theories. Yeah, I mean, the theoretical foundation, we now know what goes into the theoretical foundation. I think for me, it is to get your two theories, key in terms of those theories, and we've discussed this a couple of times. And again, guys, it's to remember these bits. It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure, Kesh, absolute pleasure. Okay, guys, remember the important part in this, and you need to write this down, and I'll put it in this way, but you'll have to delete it. The way we prefer a theoretical review to be written, a theoretical framework or theoretical foundation is, and please just do me a favor, never have headings on top of headings. Okay, so say theoretical framework or foundation, tell me what it is. Tell me the theories you're going to use. Introduce your first theory. In terms of those theories, the three components, the theory in its original format, and if you can find the original reference, that's fantastic. The theory as it has been updated by other authors. So part B, updated by other authors. And then part C, why this is relevant. You will never write part A, part B, and part C. Please make sure that you've got that clear in your mind, guys. The theory in its original format, right? The theory in terms of the way that it's been updated, and then why this theory is relevant to your research. Those are essential features in terms of what we're looking for when we do this. So you can see there, the original model there, the updated views on the model, and then this little statement, this is relevant too, because, okay. The same thing with this theory, original theory, updated views on the theory, and then the relevance of this theory. Please get that through to your mind, guys. We have to do that, okay? Everyone okay with that? I mean, am I explaining it well enough? That's something that to me is non-negotiable, and there's no reason not to get that right. Okay, guys, no reason not to get that right. And so far as the literature review is concerned, yeah, the only thing that I can tell you about the literature review, Georgia Jade, I think get a few of updated views. So have the theory in its original. If you've got a proper, powerful theory, there will be multiple updates on it. So multiple views in terms of updates, please. Okay. So even if it's just slight adjustments to it, guys, that's fine. So the literature review, yeah, and I think at this stage, and I mean, I think this, as I said, was for me the gold standard in terms of what we can expect, in particular from the amount, the number of resources used. In terms of the literature review, key that you have your themes sorted by now. Okay, you have to still do additional reading. I don't know. Key is that you look at your feedback in terms of your second submission, and get your themes right. Label your themes properly. Okay, and you can see the themes there. And I think at this stage, most people have got the concept of themes clear in their mind. It's those logical combinations of ideas that have been previously suggested about your particular topic. It is really just organizing everything that you've read into these main highlights, these particular key elements in your research. The theme is important. Please label your themes, guys. I've seen research where people didn't label the themes. So if I don't know what your theme is, how the heck must I interpret it? You have to label your themes. Also, to just say, when you do your data analysis down the road, what will happen is that you will use the findings from your data analysis and link it back to your themes. It's a form of triangulation. So get the labels on those themes absolutely perfect, okay? And then conceptualization, two authors for each concept. Academic authors, guys, please get that also just resonating hard in your head while you write this. Two authors. So two academic authors. So you can see her concepts there. And it really is, and I've said this a couple of times, and I apologize for repeating myself, but it really is that set of definitions that we need to understand as a reader in order to effectively be able to read this particular document. So you'll know what those are. I think she got away, and I did say this previously. I think there could have been other concepts. But again, the way she wrote it, the fact that she used multiple authors, the fact that those are academic authors, this is the stuff that makes this powerful. Right. Can I just see, guys, in terms of the literature review, how did that go? And I might have asked that question previously. How did the first literature review go? Please remember, and I was asked by one of my students after a presentation this weekend, how to improve marks. Remember, okay, wonderful, Tashila. Just remember, you improve marks by paying attention to the feedback. And please, when you look at the feedback on the bits and pieces that you've received, just tick off the ones that you've attended to. The feedback bits become important. Okay, my students know that they get different forms of feedback. It's the voice note and then on the document itself. So just pay attention to your feedback. And then it's about these slides, and it's about looking at the samples that we've shared with you guys. Those samples are there for a reason. And yeah, it's about keeping it simple. And if you are concerned, and if you have received feedback in terms of writing and writing ability, please let me know so we can connect you with the Writing Center. Okay, I think it's imperative for you, for those of you that are getting a little bit of, not great feedback in terms of your writing style, in terms of your grammar, in terms of your phrasing, that we get you to the Writing Center. There is nothing wrong with going to the Writing Center. The simple truth is, everyone can get help at the Writing Center. Okay, so conceptualization, there's nothing for me to say there. Okay. And then the research methodology. Okay. Right. So your research paradigm, not going to discuss this in detail again. At this stage, you've heard this enough. Make sure the golden thread is there. We are using those two. We're not going to do critical we're not doing the third one, critical realism. Okay. In terms of your research methodology, a lot of discussion. This slide for me is a wonderfully simple one to unpack each of those elements. But when you do your ontology, tell us the theory and tell us the essence of that theory within the context of your research. So give us the theory and then just tell us in terms of your research what that particular theory means. Okay, and I mean, my students did that incredibly well. This one is also very good. Just remember to focus on the key elements. I've given a lot here, guys. You can get a lot of information from here that you can use in terms of your discussion. And remember, the reason I don't put references is because everyone would have the same references. You can go find references for yourself. Right, and then the methodology. So in terms of research design, remember, we now know that interpretivism is qualitative, positivism is quantitative. There's nothing there to look at. The link is very, very clear in terms of that. So positivism will give us quantitative research, and you can see the discussion there, guys. And the way we've approached it in terms of this class is we've looked at relationships between an independent and a dependent variable. We've said that we will take those to a level of correlation, although there will be other stats that we will analyze as well. Okay. And then just in terms of your research methodology, only for your, deductive reasoning, only for quantitative research. So here you start with the theory and you go find specific evidence of that theory in a particular context. So we move from the general to the specific. Here we look at it the opposite way, where we look at experiences, opinions, suggestions, whichever terminology you want to use, from experts, from subject management experts, and from there to draw a general set of conclusions, which in our instance won't be a theory, but it will be the start of contributing to a theory. So in terms of that, yeah, I think we are all doing, exploratory research. You would have seen yourself in there. Then we've got descriptive research with some people, and we've also said explanatory research. But remember, most of us are doing correlative research in terms of the quantitative part. Okay. Guys, do you mind if we call it quits there tonight and we'll start here next week? I really have to get ready for exam prep in the next session, and I've done absolutely nothing at this stage. Okay, the submission date for this, guys, is the 9th. I think speak to your supervisors how they want to interpret the 9th. My students and I will chat about it, but it is 12 days away, which is very, very close. So please just bear that in mind, that you have to now start taking the feedback from the other bits and putting it together. Next week, we'll talk about the population, and we'll spend a bit of time on what we need to spend time on, the data analysis. Okay, guys, and please remind me next week that we start looking at scales to use in terms of your research. We'll do that next week as well. So you've got a lot to do to get to this point before next week. Thank you so much for attending. Please, please, please take care. And my apologies for being less slick yesterday. When are we